Good morning. Am I on? Bauman. Can anyone hear me? Is this live? Hello? Good morning. Hello? There we are. Good morning, everyone. That was a group of students from the Newbrook Elementary School. Yeah, they were great. And they were led by Kate Ullman, the music teacher. This was not a school day, something they came out and did for us so that we can proceed with harmony. Please rise while Greg Record leads us in the pledge. Thank you. The presiding officer of today's elections will now open the polls.
The polls are now officially open.
And we are here today. The legal voters of the town of Newfane, Vermont are hereby notified and warned to meet at the Union Hall in said town on Tuesday, March 4th, 2014 at 9 a.m. to consider and act upon the articles of the Newfane School District. And we are also warned, the legal voters of the town of Newfane, Vermont are hereby notified and warned that pursuant to Title 17 VSA, Section 2655, they are to meet at the Newfane Union Hall in Newfane, Vermont on Tuesday, March 4th at 2014, 9 a.m. to act upon the articles of the annual meeting of the town. Our meetings are now in session. I have a few procedural items to go through before we get underway with the business of the day. First, I would like anyone who is not a registered voter in the town of Newfane to please stand and introduce yourself. Roberta Dunham, you're from Brookline. All right. Anyone else who is not? Yes. That's Shannon Meckel, our administrative, yeah. And she's from Dover. Anyone else?
Patty Drew Ballard and my husband Stan Ballard. We're part-time residents on 558 Route 30, just between the post office and the creamery.
All right, and anyone else? I have to remind that non-residents that you are not allowed to speak unless we invite you, and you certainly may not vote in these elections. Are there any first-time attendees at town meeting today? Please stand. We'd like to meet you. Welcome. Anyone else? First time at town meeting? Yes.
And I was here last year.
And Louise is our librarian at the Moore Free Library. Anyone else? Yes.
Dale Stevens from Woodlands. Just moved here about a year and 4 months ago.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Welcome, everyone. Let's see. I'd like everybody to take a moment and just say hello to the people you're sitting next to. Remind them of your name. This is one of those times, someone who looks familiar, ask them their name. great deal of effort and volunteerism, and I'd like to acknowledge a few of those who have helped make today possible. I'd like to thank the Village of Newfane for the use of the Union Hall, and to Bob Litchfield for heating it for us. The town crew helped set up, and the Newburgh Fire Department loaned chairs. Every year, Bauman Mandavi graciously lets us use his audio equipment and sets it up so that you can hear each other. The Newbrook 6th grade has coffee and cake for sale and back, and it's a benefit, so your donations are greatly appreciated.
And it's also farm to school.
There's also some of the benefit, and some of the food is prepared by the new Farm to Food program, which you'll hear more about later. Brattleboro Community Television is here recording today's meeting, and residents can watch the meeting again on Wednesday at 2 o'clock and Sunday at 12 p.m. It will also be available to watch on demand at brattleboro.tv.org. I've been asked to make a few announcements. You will find a survey from West River Valley Thrives on your chairs. If you didn't get one, you can take one from an empty chair. This is a coalition of organizations working to promote healthy opportunities and to prevent substance abuse in our communities. The survey is confidential and will help them in their work. Completed surveys should be put in this envelope, which will be on the stage, and thank you for that. The very popular talent show is coming back to Williamsville on March 29th. And those of you with talent are encouraged to see Joanna Gardner to sign up. And those of you without talent are invited to come and watch. It is a benefit for the Leland and Gray Union High School players on March 29th at 7 p.m. The Williamsville Hall Committee is delighted to announce that they will be hosting a production of Neil Simon's Plaza Suite, directed by Bob Ducharme. Some of you will remember the excellent production held here last summer. Will be in Williamsville this year. There are auditions for these 3 one-act plays coming up on April 2nd and 3rd at the Brattleboro Savings and Loan Building, their community room at 6:30. There's more information on a poster in the lobby. Newfane Anew is a group of citizens seeking to restore economic and cultural vitality to Newfane in ways that align with regional initiatives. So the Newfane Anew, I lost it. Newfane Anew, and do you have it? All right. So Newfane Anew encourages all citizens to participate. There's contact information at the back of the room for anyone interested. Town business. Those of you who were here last year will remember that we corrected the minutes of our meeting from the year before. That's the 2011. Copies of those corrected minutes, thank you. Copies of those corrected minutes are now available. They're up here on the stage with lots of other good information. So you will notice in this year's town report, the minutes, there's not an article to approve those minutes. Since last year, we have learned from that Vermont state law provides the exclusive method for approving town meeting minutes by 2 town officers. If it subsequently comes to light that there is some defect in the minutes, they can be corrected, and those corrections must also be approved and attested by 2 officers as specified in 24 VSA 1152. And anyone interested in helping review the minutes may do so and should go to town hall after town meeting. And this is a good time to remind everybody that we run by Robert's Rules of Order, and this year we are using the brand new 11th edition. Really fascinating reading. We can't change state law, but we can change Robert's rules. The town report. I now ask everybody to please turn to your town report. Publishing a town report is a major undertaking with a great deal of information, and it's done under a very short amount of time and a tight deadline. So understandably, there are sometimes several corrections, and this year we have made them available to you in a separate page that's available up here. So these are the known corrections. We may find more. On the inside front cover, you will see that this year's report is dedicated to the Windham County Historical Society. Great photo of Merton and Carolyn Coleman. Okay, the Windham County Historical Society is headquartered right here in Newfane, and they put out a great newsletter which you can have, and you can be a member for the sum of $10 a year. That's membership. You can also save 50 cents postage if you sign up today. And people who will accept your $10 bills are Laura Wallington-Bacon up in the balcony, Linda Merrick over here, Dan Brooks in the balcony, and Larry Robinson. There you are. Okay, or Larry. So become members of the Windham County Historical Society. Before you turn to the vital statistics for last year, Dan's gonna.
Dan Brooks, real quick, I just really want to thank the town for dedicating it. I'm a member of the Historical Society, been in for a long time, and we feel it's just so important to keep this history alive. And we also would like to acknowledge and thank the town for their support over all these years to help our museum and society keep on plugging away. All right, thank you.
Okay. Before you turn to this year, turn to the vital statistics, it's with great sadness that I report we've recently lost an active member of our community, John Feinkel. He served our town in many ways, and there will be a memorial for him this Sunday, 2 o'clock at the church, followed by a reception at the firehouse. Okay, so on pages 96 and 97, you'll see some happier news. There have been 18 births recorded in town this year. That's twice as many deaths. It's the first time that's happened in a long time.
Yay.
So, while we're sad to lose old friends, we're delighted to welcome the next generation of future voters. So, let us remember that we are the beneficiaries of the deliberations of those who have attended town meetings before us, and we are obligated to do our best for those who follow. Let us please do so passionately and politely. There would be no town meeting, no budget, no bills paid, no policies made, were it not for the volunteers who serve on our behalf, both on the Newfane School Board and the Board of Selectmen. These are ordinary citizens who have made an extraordinary commitment of service to our town, and I ask the members of both boards to please stand. Our elected officials, Dick Merrick and Peter Galbraith, hope to stop by later, and I hope that you will welcome them when they do. And one reminder that there are several blanks on the ballot. I know there are some write-in candidates. I must remind everybody that this is technically a polling place and there must be no solicitations or politicking here. So it has to be done 100 feet from the building. And I thank you all for that. Finally, I thank you for sending me to moderator school again. My job is to guide you through the meeting following Robert's Rules of Orders. And today we have a microphone up here for those of you who would like to use it, and I will give precedence to people standing at the mic so that everybody can hear. And this is your chance to be heard. Okay? When you do take the floor, please state your name and address your comments to me, the moderator. While this may seem stilted, it lets me take the heat, keeps you from getting into any kind of personal disagreement. Town meeting lasts for a few hours, but you are neighbors all year. I will do my best to keep you informed about how to proceed. If you have any questions about how to do something, please ask. If you don't understand what's happening, please ask. And if you disagree with the moderator, you can appeal my decision. Just ask me and I'll tell you how to do it. It is our tradition to alternate our meetings between town and school. So this year it's the turn for the school to go first. Town meeting will now recess until the school meeting adjourns. Article 1. Shall the town school district of Newfane rescind its previous action to increase the school board to 5 members and return to a 3-member board with 3 3-year staggered terms? Is there a motion? Greg Record has moved. Is there a second? Please, we need, for our notes and the minutes, we need to be able to recognize who's doing that.
Second.
Fred Bacon, thank you. Mind me to look up? The motion, it has been moved and seconded. Shall the town school district of Newfane rescind its previous action to increase the school board to 5 members and return to a 3-member board with 3 3-year staggered terms? Is there any discussion? Kim.
Can you hear me? My name is Kim Friedman. I am chair of the Newfane School Board and chair of the Joint Brookline Museum Contract Board. This may not sound germane, but it is. I would like to start off by recognizing Lisa Harris for her thoughtful, steady, and wise contributions to the Newfane and Joint School Board. She has been a wonderful colleague on the board, and I would like you to join me, please, in a round of applause. Thank goodness Ken McFadden is remaining on the board. This is also germane. He has brought very strong financing and budgeting skills to the board. He has provided a lot of leadership on the school's energy project, which will come to fruition sometime this spring or summer. He has demonstrated a wonderful ability to listen to different perspectives, and he's been very patient with me for many years. Unfortunately, Ken is the only Newfane school director who, as of the end of town meeting, will be on the Newfane school board and representing Newfane on the joint board. After 8 years on the Newfane board and the joint school board, I am stepping down, so this is my last commitment as the school board chair. Lisa is leading the board. We have had 2 empty slots on the board for about 1.5 years from Newfane. There's been 1 empty slot from Brookline, so the joint board that's supposed to have 8 members has only had 5. And that is despite our efforts to do quite a bit of outreach. Kim Colligan, when she was on the board, we still miss you, it contacted over 20 Newfane residents to see if people were willing to serve. And while everyone was very supportive of the school board and of the work, people were not able or willing to make the significant time commitment involved. So Lisa, Ken, and I put our heads together and are proposing to our fellow Newfane residents that we move from as one step to try to address this quite serious dilemma, that we reduce the size of the Newfane school board from 5 to 3 people, in the hopes that we're going to be able to find 2 people to appoint to the board, and then concomitantly we would reduce the size of the joint board from 8 to 5 people. So there'd be 3 Newfane representatives down from 5, and 2 Brookline school directors down from 3. If the 5 towns that will be voting on a proposed Wyndham Central Education District support that, then all of this would be moot. So this may end up to be a short-term solution to the problem. But nevertheless, the vote on the proposed Wyndham Central Education District won't be until probably the spring, maybe later. So we do need to take some interim measures. And while I do have the floor, I just want to make a plug for supporting the Wyndham Central Education District proposal. This dilemma that we are in terms of not being able to fill all the requisite seats on the school board is a problem that we are seeing all over the state. And it's something that needs to be addressed on a regional and supervisory union district as well as at a town level. So thank you for this time to explain the background behind this article, and of course, Ken, Lisa, and I are available to answer any questions that you might have about the situation that has led to this article.
Yes.
Correct record, I think Kim, just a little logistic thing. Maybe folks don't know. On a 5-member board, in order to hold a meeting, you have to have a quorum. 5-member board, that means 3 people. So in order, if they knock this down, at least they can still have meetings. At this point, there have been times they've had to miss meetings for lack of votes. So there is a logistic element to this also.
Any other things? If I may?
Sure.
I don't know if I need this or not. Ken Newfane, if we do not get a quorum, we go down to 3, that means we have to have at least 1 more person be assigned to the board. If they're not, everything gets turned over to the Attorney General's office. I can still, if I'm elected, go in, okay, payrolls and okay pay orders, but they still can't be approved because the minutes for the meeting would never be approved. So basically, it's pretty stagnant. Nothing will ever get accomplished at the school. It'll go up to the state level. And so somebody, since you can't poll here, I don't know the legalities of saying this, but I'm going to say it. If somebody stood up right now and maybe in between changing of the 2 meetings between the school district and the town, decided to walk 100 feet off and give everybody their name, maybe they could be put in as right. As long as they didn't solicit here, if they just happen to stand up right now, it'd be okay. And after this, walk across the street and give everybody their name since they can't give it here. That's the only thing I can suggest.
From a procedural point
Or
of view,
contact me after today.
that would be a better move.
I don't know if I'm not a quorum, if I can't appoint somebody. So, see, there's a little legality problem there. Even if I do appoint somebody, I need a majority to approve it, and I don't have one, so we're in a dilemma here. So if somebody happens to stand up right now, I won't say anything. That's all I have to say.
Is there any other discussion? Myra Fassler has asked to move the question without even being recognized. If there's no further discussion, it seems as if we're ready to vote. Give anybody a last minute to raise your hand. Okay, we're voting on Article 1 of the school warning. Shall the Town School District of Newfane rescind its previous action to increase the school board to 5 members and return to a 3-member board with 3-year staggered terms? All those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed by saying no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it, and the motion carries. Article 2 is the list of positions being elected today by Australian ballot, and the polls are open. And as it says at the bottom, if Article 1 is approved, which it has been, each elected school director will serve until the expiration of the term for the seat to which he is elected. Article 3, to compensate the directors of the Newfane School District $200 each. Is there a motion? Michael Granger has made a motion. Is there a second? Greg Greger has seconded. The Article 3 is on the floor to compensate the directors of the Newfane School District $200 each. Is there any discussion? Okay.
Greg Becker, I just wondered, you folks left off the treasurer, $2,200 was on last year's article. I'm just not sure why that was.
The superintendent, Dr. Stephen John, was advised by the Secretary of State's office that it was not appropriate to have had that as part of this article, and so it was separated out.
I have to interrupt with a very important update. The coffee is ready. Is there further discussion of Article 3? Are you ready to vote? Yes.
Order for spelling.
I think, Kim, or Madam Chairman, that there actually is no payment to the Newfane district treasurer. That payment's only made by to the appointed one for the joint boards. So is that what, and that's why that was separated out?
Yeah, because we are not a joint school district, we are a joint school board. So there remains a Brookline school treasurer and a Newfane school treasurer. After every town meeting, the joint board designates one of those school treasurers as the joint board's school treasurer. Am I making a case for a joint school board here? Gloria is correct. It's then the payment for whomever is selected as the joint board school treasurer is then included in the Newbrook budget.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll take it to a vote. Article 3, to compensate the directors of the Newfane School District $200 each. An aye vote means they'll get the money, and no vote means they won't. All those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it, and the motion carries. Article 4, to set the date of the annual meeting of the Newfane School District for the first Tuesday of March in the year 2015. Is there a motion? John Mack has moved it, and Katie Robinson has seconded it. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All those in favor to transact any other, no, all those in favor to set the date of the annual meeting of the Newfane School District for the first Tuesday of March in the year 2015, please indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it, and the motion carries. Article 5, to transact any other business that may legally come before the meeting. Yes.
Earl Marsh, I was wondering how the two towns could have an Australian ballot on the budget for the Newbrook. That makes sense.
Is there someone who wants to explain how the Newbrook School could have an Australian ballot on the budget?
It's, this has come up time and time again for probably every joint Brookline Newfane annual school budget meeting since we became a joint contract board. And it is, the joint school board has been asked every year to consider Australian ballot. There are pros and cons to that. Every year we have debated and decided to stick with our current format because we feel that it is, by having the two towns come together and having the opportunity to discuss the budget, we as a joint board have a much better sense of the community, how the community is feeling about the budget and how you're feeling about the school and the work of the school board than if we have an Australian ballot. If for any reason, and this happened recently with the Wheeler and Gray budget, if for any reason the budget is not supported, is not approved, we as a joint board have absolutely no way of knowing if it was because people wanted to see a higher budget, a lower budget, what the concerns were. So as I said, the joint board has determined every year after discussing this that we want to stay with the current format, which we feel is more engaging and gives us a much better sense of the pulse of the community.
I'm just thinking of the sensibility of the people that are before and were sensible not to be around for this time of year. I have an Australian ballot for the next $2. They're both of the town current.
The chair recognizes Gary Katz.
I'd like to support the notion of an Australian ballot for the school budget, but the problem with this, I understand the desire to get as many people to talk about it as possible, but we wind up disenfranchising people who, for very legitimate reasons, can't make it to a specific meeting. And if there were any way at all that we could get their input, it seems to me it's better than not having input at all. So this is a personal example. We wanted very much to come to a meeting that had a prior commitment this year and couldn't. Our voices couldn't be heard. And I'm sure that there are people all over town who have the same problem. I wish that the community would strongly suggest to the board that it makes sense not to disenfranchise members of our community. And if there are some negative aspects to that, that's something that we have to deal with. But why prevent people from voting if they would like to vote?
From a procedural point of view, people have to come to the meeting to vote for the Australian ballot. And the next joint school board meeting is scheduled for a Wednesday night in February of 2015. Do you know the date? It's the second Wednesday in February of 2015. If you put it on your calendars now, there's a good chance you might make it. Is there any other non-binding business or further discussion to come before the, yes, Emily Long. Not at all.
I think you can all hear me. I hope you can.
There's a mic right there.
I usually have a pretty big mouth. I can use the mic though if you want.
I don't knock everything off here. I just wanted to say, first, thank you to Lisa, as Kim did, for serving on the Newfane School Board and the Joint Contract Board. But I also wanted to recognize somebody else who has been working for us for 8 years in Newfane and on the Joint Contract Board as well, who's been a force, in fact, in our community, speaking out for students in our town, and actually much more broadly as well. I've worked with Kim Friedman for the last 8 years. I'm chair of the Wyndham Central Board, so she has spent quite a bit of time working with me on governance issues and many other things over the past. She's a force, honestly, and she's going to be greatly missed. She's calm, she's articulate, and yet she's powerful. And so I just wanted to say a very, very deep thank you to Kim Friedman for all of her efforts.
Is there any further discussion? Yes.
Just a tiny addition from the board, thanking you, Kim. And I really have enjoyed the privilege of serving on this board with you. And you will be serving this. I think one part that really stands out to me about your service to the community is your civility. I know Deb reminds us of it every year in town meeting, and it is so important, and it made it really possible for me to serve on this board, knowing that you were a champion of that, if you will, really working towards fairness and respect for everyone, even in the face of disrespect. So, thank you.
Further business to come before the school, Newfane School District.
Up in the balcony, please.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Dan Brooks, just back to the front, I have my hand up, I didn't see you.
I'm sorry.
Following with Mr. Morris and Mr. Katz, could you just clarify, this is the meeting?
This is the Newfane school meeting.
Yeah.
Right, and at this meeting, we have absolutely no jurisdiction whatsoever over the Newfane Brookline Joint School District. That is a separate meeting, that annual meeting for that body happened on February 12th. 45 people came. There was interesting discussion. A $1.9 million budget was passed to support the schools. This is the Newfane School District, where the Newfane Board, which now is Ken McFadden, hears what voters have to say, and he can bring that to the Joint School Board, and they can bring that to the meeting the second Wednesday in February of 2015, and the voters there can decide, will have a chance to decide. Does that help?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any other questions, or?
Would that have to become an article? That you're going to meet?
Yes, it would have to be a warrant article. Yes, it would have to be legally binding, it has to be a warrant article. Yes.
I'm sorry, I should have mentioned this before, but thank you for recognizing me again. I just wanted to say I'm chair of the Little and Gray Board, and I think everybody's aware that the budget was defeated this year by 10 votes. And the school board at Little and Gray, I hope this is germane to the school instead of the town district meeting, but I'm going for it here because we're talking about schools. So the Little and Gray Board has received a petition with enough signatures on it to ask for reconsideration of the vote. So we are bound by law to actually present the budget that was presented to you earlier for reconsideration. There's a 30-day period where we have to wait to implement a budget in case there's a petition. So that has taken place. So I just wanted to let everyone know that the vote has been warned for April 2nd. And there is an information meeting on March, I think, 25th have questions, contact your Leland Gray board member. Look, there's a budget rationale that's up on your stage up there right in front of the microphone by Deb. So any information you need, let me know. Thank you.
Is there any other school business? Yes, Laura. At the Newburgh Elementary School budget meeting, I made a misstatement. Because this is a revote of the same budget, we have to abide exactly by the warning. So that vote will again occur at the Newburgh Fire Department. And then in the next year, it could be moved back down to the office like the other towns around us. But it will be at the Newburgh Fire Department, and that's already been scheduled.
That's April 2nd from 9 a.m. until 7 p.m. by Australian Ballot. Any further discussion for school business? Remember to look up there behind me. Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn the school meeting.
Before we do,
Yes?
one more round of applause so Kim, please.
Can we then please make a motion to adjourn? Ken McFadden moves that we adjourn. Is there a second? Mr. Pelsu, thank you. All those in favor of adjournment, please indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed, say no. Article 2. Shall the voters of the town of Newfane vote to pay its officers for the ensuing year the following salaries and expenses? The town clerk, $35,128 annual salary. Town treasurer, $35,128 annual salary. Listers, $14.16 per hour. Other elected or appointed officials, $8.46 per hour. Mileage reimbursement at 55 cents per mile. Is there a motion? Sir. Okay. Can you get that? Do we need a recess? Okay, and a second. Myra Fessler, thank you. So Article 2 as read is now in motion. Is there any discussion? Yes, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. Joseph Johnson, Newfane. Basically, in reaction to great records, bringing up the question of compensation was the last several town meetings. I really took a look at compensation offered in this town report, and then went back to previous and discovered that there was a 5% raise 2 years ago, a 3% raise last year, a 1.5% raise this year, and that's for elected. And then when I looked at the highway department, they're giving up money. So it's costing us less to have the fellows who work the hardest work for us in the next 9 years. My primary question is that in no case do we ever understand that the town is satisfied with the work that people are being paid to accomplish, and that we have no idea whether those who are working are meeting their expectations, exceeding their expectations, or failing to meet them. All of us who have jobs are get performance evaluated. In some fashion, I'm requesting that the town communicate to us in some rational, confidential fashion how they can justify a raise based on what they believe is acceptable performance. Thank you.
Is there any other conversation? Does anyone want to speak to that? Greg?
I would like to moderator to amend the article.
Yes?
I still move the level fund. So that the article reads, town clerk, $34,128 $34,608 annual salary. Town treasurer, $34,608 annual salary. Listers, $13.91 per hour. Other elected or appointed officers, $8.46 per hour, no change. Mileage reimbursement, 55 cents, no change.
Could you just read me the first number again, please?
Sure. 34,608. That's last year's.
All right. Thank you. This is an amendment. We need a second to the amendment. Lori Minor is second. And so now the discussion is open on the amendment to the motion. And the amendment is to change Article 2 so that it would read Town Clerk, $34,608, Town Treasurer, $34,608, and Listers, $13.91. Everything else remains unchanged. Is there discussion? Yes.
Just for the record, in terms of what Tristan was saying, actually last year, what we did was give the same increase it's not to the all town employees and officers. It is correct, as Tristan was saying, that we cannot evaluate the officers in the same way that we evaluate employees, because the select board does not supervise, nor any other organ, except the body politic. That is, we, the town, supervise in the sense that we have elections, so that we are always possible to vote a new person in if we feel the work that the person is doing is not satisfactory. So that is the recourse that the town has. The standard employee evaluation is not something that the select board has the right to do. It can evaluate, but it does not carry any weight. So just to be clear, in this case, all town employees and officers were given a 25-cent per hour increase, and that's what seemed to the select board to be the reasonable raise for all concerned, and to be a very moderate, like a 1.5% increase. I'd also mention that the two members of the select board who would be directly affected by this, that is our town clerk and our road foreman, recused themselves from all discussion and involvement in that decision.
Is there further comment? I want everybody else gets a chance first. Yes. Brava.
Hi, this is Johanna Gardner. And I have to say, last year this whole discussion, I'm supposed to be addressing. Last year this whole discussion kind of annoyed me quite a bit. And I do feel that there's, last year there was maybe two $200,000 dump trucks that nobody batted an eye over passing those. And yet, when it came to discussing the salaries for a couple of people who work really hard in the town offices, and I think they do a great job. We probably spent half an hour discussing that, and I really don't think that a 1% or 1.5% increase is a lot. I don't know what the cost of living increase is generally for most salaries. I think usually it's supposed to be 3%. I think personally I'm getting like a 1% raise every year, and I don't think it's unreasonable. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Is there anyone who has not spoken to this subject who would like to? Yes, Lynn. Starting a new trend here.
Good morning. I just have a question. And does salaries going to certain people in the office basically stay the same. Does that also apply to road crew?
I will defer to the select board to answer
All
that.
salaries are set for full-time employees are set by the list, for the listers as well, were increased by 25 cents an hour. Yes, all, it applied to the road crew as well as to town officers and to the listers.
Does that answer your question? Yes.
But we're not voting on the town road.
Not in this article. In this article, we are voting on the salaries for the elected positions. Yes.
But we do vote on the budget, so in that sense, we do vote later on that.
Yes.
Tim Schaefer, Williamsville. I'd like to submit that the town clerk and town treasurer act to manage an institution of size and complexity that rivals anything else in this town and is right up there with any major institution in the county. Their jobs of great complexity. They involve budgets in the millions of dollars drawn from taxes, which are defined by bizarre and arcane regulations drawn from grants, from state monies, federal monies, all of which come with stipulations and regulations, all of which must then be dispersed according to their own reporting requirements and other very fine-tuning. The town officers must respond to the public. They're a clearinghouse for information without which we could not function. They deal with volunteers, with a huge payroll. They answer to state and federal and local regulations. They must bring years of experience, some of it very hard-won. They must educate themselves. They have to keep up on technology. They must update. I think these are extraordinary jobs. I would no more ask them to work for little money or not get a raise that I would ask my office manager at the hospital to work for free, just because those are sort of for the public good and a non-profit group. So I think we need to recognize the job these people do, the expertise they bring, their extraordinary responsibility, their responsiveness to the public, and to give them an annual rate. Thank you.
Yes.
Robin, Chris, Newfane. I don't understand why it's not tied to the hammer.
You need to use the microphone, please.
If the increase in cost of living is 3%, why don't we give them a raise of 3%? That's what I think should be happening, given the quality of work. And I also know how many extra hours the treasurer and the town clerk do on top of what they're supposed to do. So,
I'd like to remind everybody we are discussing the amendment to the article right now, which is an amendment that reduces the amount in the warrant article. Is there any more discussion of that amendment? I also procedurally can let you know that we will vote on the amendment first. An amendment can be amended once, and we'll do the pleasure of the House. Is there more discussion? Greg, you wanted to speak a second time? If there's anyone who wants to speak a first time on this, now would be the time. Otherwise, Greg Record is going to speak a second time. I'm sorry. I'm going to close the balcony next year. I'm sorry.
Williamsville, the cost of living this past year was 1.5%, and the proposal is saying that the cost of living
not sure I'm going to repeat that so that everybody heard and make sure I got it right. Mr. Bacon is saying that the cost of living increased last year by 1.5%, and I didn't hear the second part of that.
And this proposal is for the same as that.
And this proposal is for the same increase. Is there anyone else who hasn't spoken yet on this amendment?
Call to question.
I'm sorry, there's somebody else who wants to speak. And Greg, please, you have the floor.
Again, with all due respect, this keeps coming back to comparisons to folks that are hired. My point to this entire deal is these are elected officials. Elected officials. They are not the equivalent of the town road crew, administrative assistant, or anyone else. They're elected. Representative Merritt does not work for the town of Newfane Town Mtg. The governor of the state is not, he's not a state employee. Our senators are not federal employees. They are elected officials. That is a difference. And I also take a little grain of salt because I've been there. Town treasurer, town clerk, selectmen, listers, they're all equal. There is nobody who works any harder than anyone else. That's totally untrue unless you sat in that seat. When I was a selectman, I could not go to grocery shop. I could not go to a school function with my children. I could not stop in the store and have a coffee. You think I didn't get phone calls all hours of the night? That is not just a treasurer and a town clerk. They're not the only ones that go through that. That is all part of the job. And I see many people here who have been there, and I don't think any of them will argue with me on that. It is not an 8-to-5 job. So it bothers me that you're making this out that that's more important than anyone else that's elected. It's not. Now, this is only a $520 increase, and I emphasize the word only, because it's not about the money. My point here is just that. These are elected officials. You are elected to serve the people, not to worry about what your compensation and what your retirement and what your protection is. Well, I did a little research. I threaten this every year. It was going to cost me some money, but thank goodness for the selectmen, they let me look at the books. These are in the town office. This is the 2012 VLCT compensation report. Okay, they put this out. And this is all information that is given in this book is from all the towns around. VLC puts this together. What I had to base this all on was population. I think that's the only thing we can go by that's equivalent. In going through that book, there were 10 towns, including Newfane, that all have around 1,700 folks, okay, population. And I just want to give you a few here, and I'm not going to give you the exact figures I can, but that's not the point. Town clerk, treasurer, okay, Barnett pays $41,000 plus. Burke pays $45,000 plus. Proctor pays $32,000 plus. Troy pays $35,000 plus. Wolcott pays $33,000 plus. In those 5 towns, the treasurer and town clerk are the same person. Okay? And I'm not advocating that we go to that at all. We're finding a way to do it. All I'm trying to emphasize is the fact. This figure, $35,120, that's a lot of money. According to moneyrates.com, I want to computer look this up again, Vermont is ranked 48 out of 50 states. Average income, state of Vermont, $30,433. My point being again, $30,000 is a lot of money. I know a lot of folks in this town, a lot more folks in this town. They aren't here today because they're working. $30,000 is a lot of money. And that's all I'm trying to get across. This is not a personal thing or anything like that. Every year I have to stand up and do this, and we start comparing them to the town road crew or the administrative assistants out. They are hired employees. Totally different. These are elected officials. So again, that's why I say, and I also, just for a little side point, I did a paper back in 1976 in college, and at that time, I compared income to cost of living. Vermont was 48 back then. So in 35 years, we've always been in the last 10. And that's, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's just factual. And I think we all can agree why we need Vermont. And it's not for the money part. If it was, it should be. But again, please, stick with the fact that we're elected officials. Thank you.
Williamsville. I have to commend Mr. Record for the kind of research he's done and his courage to come up here every year and present this argument. So I thank him for that. But it's absolutely, in my mind, in my opinion, there's absolutely no logic to the fact that someone is elected, they shouldn't have a raise. That's all I'm saying. There's no logic to it. So give him a raise. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Chris Williams.
The only thing I've got to say about this is, an elected person, if they don't like what the salary is, why are they running for the office?
Is there any other discussion? Yes.
All the questions, Myra Fass.
Myra Fass has moved that we call a question. The question is the amendment. Chris Campany has seconded it. We need a 2/3 majority to call the question. So, does everybody understand what we're going to be voting on? Is simply whether we're going to end discussion on the amendment and vote. All those in favor of ending discussion now, please indicate so by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed to ending discussion now, please indicate so by saying no. We'll end discussion and now move the question on the amendment. Dick, I hope you can just hold on a minute. So, we're now going to vote on the amendment, which I'm going to read to you. An aye vote means you're in favor of the amendment, and then we're going to vote on it again. Is this a point of order?
I think so.
Well, try it.
Is it possible, I know people aren't going to like this, but is it possible to do this by written ballot rather than voice vote?
The state law says that if there are 7 people who want to do it by paper ballot, we can do that. We have to do that. So if this is a request, are there 7 people? I need 7 people who want to vote on the amendment. Remember, we're going to vote on this again. The amendment by paper ballot. I need a show of hands. All those in favor of a paper ballot at this time, please indicate so by raising your hand. I need the Board of Civil Authority. I am not one.
Fred, can you put a hand count? I see 5. 6.
We need please, you have to keep your hand up until everybody finishes counting. 8. We will have a paper ballot on this, and I am going to turn this over to the presiding officer. So let me give you final instructions. A yes vote means you are in favor of this amendment, and we will then be moving on, and the amendment is, shall the voters of the town of Newfane vote to pay its officers for the ensuing year the following salaries and expenses. Town clerk, $34,608 annual salary. Town treasurer, $34,608 annual salary. Listers, $13.91 per hour. Other elected or appointed officers, $8.46 per hour. And mileage reimbursement, 55 cents per mile. A yes vote will make that amendment our article for the next round. And I turn this over to the presiding officer for voting.
What I'd like you to do is to come forward and take one of these colored pieces of paper. You will need to walk by the entrance checklist person who will put a pencil check mark to make sure that you are a registered voter of the town of Newfane. And then you're going to take a pencil if it's okay, if not, use one of the pens in the voting booth. After you have voted, I have a box.
While the Board of Civil Authority, after the voting is underway, and while the Board of Civil Authority is counting, we will invite our representative to Montpelier, Richard Merrick, to talk. But after you cast your ballot, you are reminded of your thirst, your need for coffee, your hunger, your need for snack. And the 6th grade and the food farm to school programs need for your contributions. Anyone who wants to vote should be online now. And I turn it over to Rick Merrill.
This is on. I have to say there's nothing that makes one more nervous than walking in the door just as Greg Record says your name. And you have no idea what he's saying. So, whatever, it wasn't good, Greg says. Thank you, Greg. Okay, let me just take a few minutes. We've got the usual handouts up here for you. Senator Doyle, I think maybe Senator Doyle may be approaching his 40th year with the Doyle poll, which I'm always usually asked to respond to here. We'll see if they do this year or not, because I always want to say maybe on a few things. But Senator Doyle's poll is here. If you fill it out, it will be, and then leave it up here, it will be sent back up to Senator Doyle. They tabulate these every year, both by district and also statewide, and they usually get about 12,000 responses statewide. It is not, I guess, statistically validated, but it tends, with 12,000 responses from all over the state, to be pretty reflective of how Vermonters are thinking about issues, and we find it helpful. So if you fill one out, that'd be great. I'll leave that up here, and I also have a town meeting report, which, as usual, touches on a few of the issues that are floating around the State House that we're working on. As I said over in Townsend, if I made this one that covered everything we're talking about, it would be about 40 pages long, and nobody would want to read it. Whether you want to read 2 pages is entirely up to you. So take it if you will, and take a glance at it. I guess the issue that is kind of dominating a lot of discussion in Montpelier and around the state is one that the governor took kind of an unusual approach at his State of the State address this year. As some of you probably know, he, rather than doing the usual smorgasbord of spending an hour or so talking about every issue pertinent to the state of Vermont, which is the usual method, he devoted virtually his entire speech to the issue of opiate abuse and the effect that's having on Vermont in an awful lot of ways, and plans to try to begin to address it in a different way than we have in the past. I've been on the Judiciary Committee for 12 years now, and we have certainly tried in a lot of ways to address the issue of both prescription drug abuse, oxycodone, OxyContin, and also heroin. And we've, I think, taken some steps that have improved the situation. We've rationalized penalties for different classes of drugs to make them more comparable and more fair, more equitable. We've tried to enhance some of the penalties for people who are high-end dealers, and we've tried to shine as much light as we can on getting people into treatment early. But frankly, the problem is a little like pushing a balloon. We've fairly significantly impacted availability and the price of oxycodone and OxyContin, which is to be good. But the problem is market demand tends to shift. And when you raise the price for one class of opiates, people go to something else like heroin. So heroin arrests, abuses, deaths have mushroomed. We lost over 50 Vermonters last year to heroin overdoses. And those are lives that are wasted. We spend a huge amount of our money on putting people into jail rather than into treatment. We've had totally inadequate treatment programs. Rutland is a great example of a community that resisted having a treatment facility in its town. They kept saying, well, don't put it in this area, don't put it in that area. They now have created a treatment center for opiates, and they've got over 400 people utilizing it. So there is a massive massive demand in Vermont by people who really, really want to get into treatment. But when you have someone who asks for treatment and you say, we'll have a place for you in a year, you pretty effectively lost that person. You need to get at them early. So the Senate has been doing quite a bit of work at the front end of the session, which is typical one body will start a process. We did some joint hearings on both opiate abuse problems and on some other criminal justice problems. In the beginning of the year, the Senate is crafting bills, and now that we're at the halfway point, those bills will be coming over to the House, and to a significant degree will end up in the committee that I'm on. So we are going to be addressing that problem, and a lot of the focus really is on making sure that we, sure.
I don't mean to interrupt, but the Board of Civil Authority is now closing the voting on the amendment, and if you still have a paper ballot for that, please take it over, and would the members of the Board of Civil Authority who are here join Priscilla Cotton, Fred Bacon, and Greg Record over there so we can do a count? Sorry.
Thanks. So we are really trying to shift the paradigm where we, at the time of arrest for low-end people, move them into options for treatment rather than simply incarceration. I'd rather spend part of that $50,000 a year that it costs to put somebody in a jail cell and getting them off the substance so that they aren't coming back again. The problem with the dealer end of it is it's incredibly difficult to arrest your way out of this. It's a classic example of free market economics at work. It actually does work in some arenas. And if you can go down to Springfield or Hartford and buy a bag of heroin for $3 or $6, probably $6, and sell it up here for $30, make a 500% profit. You literally can take $1,000 down there, buy that much heroin, and come up here and make a 500% profit in a couple of days. You are not going to arrest your way out of that, because as soon as you arrest the first person, somebody else is going to say, gee, I'd like to make 500% profit a day too. And I guess if there were a company that offered that kind of return, we'd all want to buy stock in it. You simply aren't going to accomplish everything by arresting. You still need to do that, and you can see the interdiction on I-91 pretty much every couple of days in the Reformer, where someone is stopped for, gee, what, having a burned out taillight or an improper lane change without signaling. And, you know, by some miracle, they always seem to have a significant amount of contraband substance in their car. And I think communications from law enforcement in those supply cities get to the police in Vermont, and the word is out, look for this car, and I think you'll find a surprise in it. So, you know, we can continue enforcement, but this isn't solve the whole problem. So we are really trying to shift the approach in Vermont. I'm glad the governor, frankly, surprised a lot of the country by talking about that problem in Vermont, because most people have the classic view of Vermont as a place where such things don't happen. If you look at the amount of property crime that costs all of us money in one way or another, a huge amount of that is driven by people trying to supply a habit. If it costs you $30,000 or $40,000 a year, most people do not make that by straightforward income. They make it by committing crime. So it will have a huge impact if we get our arms around this. Slightly more positive note, one of the little things we just did in the House, Green Up Day has told us that they are really in danger of folding. The corporate sponsorships have ebbed for it, and they were looking in 2015 at a $20,000 shortfall. Those green bags actually do cost money. And what we did was put that sort of in the hands of Vermonters for the near term at least by putting a check off on the income tax form that you'll see next year that allows you to make a voluntary dollar donation to keep Green Up Day funded. I have enough faith in Vermonters, so I suspect they'll have plenty of money when people check that little box out, so I encourage you to do that. A lot of other issues floating around, but I will stop talking and try to take a few questions. I guess there's a minute or two while they're still counting ballots, so. But I will trust the moderator to use a book when it is appropriate.
Another minute, 15 seconds.
1 minute and 15 seconds. Okay, I can take 5 15-second questions. Questions? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Dan.
Do you support the idea of a state bank or a state bank, a state country bank, with money that we hold other banks and making a fund so we're lending ourselves our own money? That Anthony Twain is doing the Senate. Are you
State bank proposal? Yeah, I mean, what's that about? You want to? I will probably not get it as well as Dan will because he has a strong interest, I think, in this. But it's basically to create a state bank and shift some of the state money that we have a lot of money that sits in reserve for different reasons at different points, and some of that money would be shifted into the state bank and would be available for reinvestment in Vermont. I think it's North Dakota that has had one for decades. I think it was probably almost a creature of the Great Depression. So maybe the Great Recession is a stimulus to do it. I am sort of open in terms of how much impact it will really have. I leave the numbers to people who are better mathematicians than me, but it seems to me that the core issue is can we direct more Vermont money into Vermont growth, Vermont projects, and this may be a way to do it. So we'll see. I think the Senate have they passed it or is it still under? I don't know either. Especially the week before town meeting, we tend to develop real tunnel vision because we're trying to get bills out of our committees before this is the second year of the biennium, and we have actually next week, the week after the biennium, to get any bill out of the original committee in both bodies, otherwise they're dead. And so it's a frantic time. I'm getting the hook. I will stand aside then, and thank you for having me up here.
Well, thank you so much for coming. Okay, well, thank you for all you do, Bruce. All right. A yes vote was in favor of the amendment. A no vote was against the amendment. There were 101 votes cast, and it needed a simple majority. There were 36 votes for yes and 65 for no. The amendment fails. So now we take up Article 2 as printed in the warning. And is there any discussion? Yes?
Kim Friedman, I'd like to move to call the question.
And Chris Campion seconded. Is there, we need a 2/3 majority to call the question without further discussion. So if you vote yes, you want to just vote on the article. And no means you want to talk more. All those in favor of calling the question now, please indicate so by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. We will now vote on the amendment as printed in the warning. We will now vote on the article as printed in the warning, and I will read it one more time. Shall the voters of the town of Newfane vote to pay its officers for the ensuing year the following salaries and expenses? Town clerk, $35,128 annual salary. Town treasurer, $35,128 annual salary. Listers, $14.16 per hour. Other elected or appointed officials, $8.46 per hour, and mileage reimbursement at 55 cents per hour. And I vote is in favor of per mile, right? Thank you. Mileage reimbursement at 55 cents per mile. Thank you. Those in favor of this article, please indicate so by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. No. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it, and the motion passes. Article 3. Shall the voters of the town of Newfane pay taxes for the ensuing year on a quarterly basis due on the 15th of August, October, January, and April. The late charge for interest being at the maximum legal rate of 1% per month for the current fiscal year and 1.5% per month for each month thereafter until paid. Is there a motion? Todd moved it and Myra Fassler seconded it. Do you want me to read it again or as read? As I read it, this motion, Article 3, as I read it, is now in play. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, are we ready to vote? All right, we are voting on Article 3. Shall the voters of the town of Newfane pay taxes for the ensuing year on a quarterly basis due on the 15th of August, October, January, and April, the late charge for interest being at the maximum legal rate of 1% per month for the current fiscal year and 1.5% per month for each month thereafter until paid. All those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it, and Article 3 passes. Article 4. Shall the voters of the town of Newfane authorize the select board to sell or otherwise convey property acquired through tax sale proceedings? Is there a motion? Gary Katz moved it. Is there a second? Katie Robinson seconds it. Article 4, shall the voters of the town of Newfane authorize the select board to sell or otherwise convey property acquired through tax sale proceedings? Is there any discussion? You ready to vote? All those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye, and those opposed by saying no. Shall the voters of the town of Newfane authorize the select board to sell or otherwise convey property acquired through tax sale proceedings? Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it, and the article passes. Article 5. Shall the voters of the town of Newfane vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $4,125 by taxation for the Visiting Nurse Association of Vermont and New Hampshire in the budget on page 57? Is there a motion? Gunther Garvey moves it, and Myra Fassler seconds it. And Article 5, as read, is now on the floor. Yes, Gunther.
I'd like to speak to the warning. Last year, the nursing service provided 820 home visits to 19 Newfane residents with $15,342 worth of services unreimbursed. And here's a fun statement. Vermont is the second oldest state. I forgot to say, resident-wise. This translates into an ever-increasing need for home and health care services. Therefore, I strongly suggest that we vote for this one.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, so we're ready to vote. On Article 5, an aye vote means you're in favor of supporting the Visiting Nurse Association of Vermont and New Hampshire by $4,125. So, shall the voters of the town of Newfane vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $4,125 by taxation for the Visiting Nurse Association of Vermont and New Hampshire? All those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it, and Article 5 passes. Article 6. Shall the voters of the town of Newfane vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $2,675 by taxation for Valley Cares Incorporated in the budget on page 57? Is there a motion? Greg Record. Is Chris Campany seconded? Is Article 6 is now on the floor. Is there discussion? Is there anyone here from Valley Cares to speak? Greg? in balcony? Did I miss somebody? Dan? Okay.
I'm not from Valley Cares, but my mother lived there, and I know that as a nonprofit, I perform music in nursing homes in lots of different places. Valley Cares is a different thing altogether. It's a nonprofit and shows in a lot of different ways. So I would just encourage people. I didn't even realize that they got support from town, so I think they deserve it to perform a really major service for our community.
Did everyone hear Dan? No?
Yeah.
Dan,
it's a good idea.
Is there any other discussion? Did you want to speak? Okay. All right, we're voting on Article 6 to support Valley Cares. Shall the voters of the town of Newfane vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $2,675 by taxation for Valley Cares Incorporated? All those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it, and the motion passes. Article 7. Shall the voters of the town of Newfane vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $3,500 by taxation for Grace Cottage Hospital, partially in the budget, page 45. Is there a motion? Neil Pelsu. Is there a second? Chris Campini. Article 7 is on the floor. Is there any discussion? Neil.
Full disclosure, my wife is the middle daughter of Dr. Otis Felder of Grace Cottage Hospital. So obviously I'm prejudiced and biased. This year you will notice that, or you may notice that the request from Grace Cottage is a $1,000 increase over last year. And that $2,500 has been appropriated by the town at least as far back as 2005. I don't have, that's the oldest town report that I have. So there has been no change in the amount requested and approved by the town of Newfane since 2005. We know what a wonderful resource we have there at Grace Cottage, and I hope and expect, and I'm preaching to the choir here, but I would encourage your support in front of me in voting in favor of Article 7. Thank you very much.
Is there any further discussion? Checking the balcony. I'm learning. Hearing none, we're ready for vote. On Article 7, an aye vote is in favor of $3,500 going to Grace Cottage, and it's partially in the budget, so it's Neil, in my understanding, this is a $1,000 increase to the bottom line. Okay. So, Article 7, shall the voters of the town of Newfane vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $3,500 by taxation for Grace Cottage Hospital? All those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it, and the motion passes. Article 8. Shall the voters of the town of Newfane vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $1,150 for senior solutions in the budget on page 50? Is there a motion? Myra Faxon. Is there a second? Marie Albert Pietro. Piazza. Close. All right. The Article 8 has been moved and seconded and is now on the floor for discussion. Is there anyone willing to speak? Yes, please.
Actually, the senior solutions are so very important to keeping people, older people, in their homes, as opposed to a nursing home or a rehab center or level 2 or level 3. It's very, very important to keep people in their homes, seniors.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll take it we're ready to vote on Article 8. Shall the voters of the town of Newfane vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $1,150 for senior solutions? All those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it, and the article passes. Article 9. Shall the voters of the town of Newfane vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $5,100 for Southern Vermont Economic Development Strategies, CVEDS? It's not in the budget. Is there a motion? Katie, was that a motion? Kate Robertson's moved it. Is there a second? Chris Campany, seconded. Article 9, as read, is now on the floor. Is there any discussion? Yes. Gary Katz.
As I recall, last year was the first year that the town voted to make an appropriation for veterans. Last year, I believe, was the first time the town agreed to make an appropriation for this activity. And if I recall the discussion correctly, there was sort of a flyer that we were taking. Nobody was really quite sure what was going on, but we thought we'd give them a year to take a shot at it and let us know what happened. I've actually read their report. And while the report has a tremendous amount of data and information in it, and a lot of laudable objectives, I was unable to find any specific tasks that it was proposing that would lead toward the achievement of those objectives. So I simply wanted to point out to folks that we gave these folks here, they came out with a big report, but I don't see any practical, certainly immediate benefit for Newfane. So the good ideas, it sounded like people went and pulled a lot of good planning ideas from all over the place, putting in one report. Sounds very good, but nothing that says specifically how we get from here to there. I think that they haven't demonstrated to us that we should keep funding.
Is there any further discussion? Yes, but Gerber?
I think that would make something like also have this feeling that there's a fair amount of money. And economic development is we need it badly. But I would like to hear someone tell me what this organization really is doing to assist us to grow. I mean, I have my own opinions, but I'm not hearing that. And in a sense, I think I support Gary.
Yes, what helps?
In years past, we've had a custom where if there was no one to represent or speak for an organization, asking for money was impossible.
Are you making a motion?
No.
All right. Is there anyone here willing to speak in favor of this article? Yes, Gloria.
I believe Luke Stafford was going to be here. I'm not quite sure where he is. But in terms of development, Sevens has been very instrumental in getting the motion going. In other words, there have been meetings, for example, with 130 development, and it's just been not to the point now that we can pinpoint and say specifically that this is how Newfane benefited. So without our support, all of that work, and all of us who work in any kind of planning know that it takes more than just 1 year to get that accomplished. So in that sense, I would speak for them because I've seen it in not just their report, but information that does come through the office. And there have been certain steps made, but we can't expect them to have accomplished that with just a year's planning. So I would recommend that we support them.
I'm going to acknowledge everybody else before you get a second chance. So Lori Minor.
Newfane. If I remember correctly, last year they didn't have anyone here, and that was a big concern of the group that someone was coming and soliciting money, and they didn't have anybody here to explain what the money was going to be used for. And again, we don't have anyone here this year. So maybe we need to, and I did give them feedback last year on a survey that I took, that they didn't have anyone at town meeting last year, and they should send someone here, especially if they're going to be asking for this amount of money.
You're going to have to speak up a lot louder.
I just want to point out that in Article 6 of Valley Cares, we approved the budget for 2675, and we're all here to speak about it. And there's nobody here to speak about for a $5,100 to the Southern Economic Development Strategies, which again, I don't know anything either. So I just want to point that difference out, that, giving $2,600 to Valley Cares, and giving $100 to, I don't know what.
Next, Lisa.
I think Luke Stafford did speak last year about the program. He was here, and I'm assuming he had to leave. Anyway, I would just support it also. Perhaps the amount is large, it's larger than some of the other expenditures. I'm not sure about that, but I would vote to support it. I agree with Gloria that it's the kind of thing that doesn't produce results in a year. I know that with the Child Care Association, which doesn't receive much yet from this town, unfortunately, because they are supported by them, are working with this organization to, it's a multifaceted approach to developing the economy of this whole region. They're not working just for that, they're working for the whole area, and I think it does make some time.
Just again, for the record, CEVEDS did come, a representative of CEVEDS did come to the select board to propose this be added to the budget. We did ask them to give us some specifics about what effect we might have in the town of Newfane, how directly they might be helping us, and we were made, I think, quite clear that in order for the town of Newfane to support this kind of budgetary amount, which is substantial, we really would need to show the town something that says this concretely is going on. Now, not necessarily be completed by this point, but at least give us some sense of what's happening and where is this leading. I think it would be fair to say that CEVEDS has been of some help in helping to organize and get the momentum going in terms of bringing together business interests in our area. But I do feel we have not gotten a clear layout of what the benefit either has been over the past year or that we could expect going forward. I think it is a real problem that we don't have a clear statement of what that is.
John?
Is there any way that we could maybe approve this, but send them a message? So that they know it's from next year?
I don't know how to do that procedurally, except tell your board. Yeah.
Is there something about this organization in the town reports, under reports there?
I couldn't find it.
So, if they could at least provide us some information there, if they can have somebody in attendance, that would still be helpful. Move across to
I was going to recognize Gary again. Balcony. Sorry, thank you.
Yeah, I think the way to send them the message is to say, no thanks right now. And it's not a case of, everyone knows it takes a long time to make development happen. But we don't really have any idea of what their point of view is. We don't know if they're, if they want to bring in, I'm sure they don't, but they could be wanting to bring in factories or they could want to bring everybody into a farmer. We have no idea what this is about. And I think the whole idea of an informed electorate is information. If we don't get the information, they'll take a hit of $5 grand, and next year I'll bet they will give us information, then we can actually make an intelligent decision on it. So I'm going to vote no.
Chris?
Chris Campbell, I can tell you, I'm the my day job, I'm director of the Winter Regional Commission. We work with Private Development Credit Corporation. And I can tell you that over the past year, SEVED has developed a comprehensive economic development strategy which will enable the region as a whole to tap into U.S. Economic Development Administration funding. There are specific projects that are outlined in that report. You can go online and look at that. They've been working on trying to revise, create something like a Route 30 West River Valley Business Association. That's newly underway. They've provided some staff assistance in helping, and I've had a conversation with Newfane, a new group which has been founded or created. But basically, it's a regional economic development effort coordinated by the Private Development Credit Corporation that's newly underway. And I can't speak to them not providing better communication with the town. I mean, that's because we need to get back. But I just didn't want to let folks say that nothing had happened over the last year. But right now, it's still more at 10,000 feet with the idea of as they get up and rolling more and as more external resources become available, that they can actually implement the projects. So I think it would be good to have them come and just have a town meeting, or not just a town meeting, but come describe what they're doing. And so just wanted to give you a heads up about what we're doing. Yeah, have a forum.
Does anyone want to amend the article? No? Gary? Last.
I find myself in a very unusual position being on the same side of the issue as John Maxwell.
It happens to everybody once in a while.
There are lots of priorities to using the town's money. We can probably do a lot more that's going to have some substantial impact to the town with $5,000 and blindly giving it again to this organization, which, while it may have been very active over the last year, I'm not sure it's made much progress, if you understand the distinction.
Yes?
Lynn Forrest, South Newfane. I attended one of the big meetings that started out, which had representatives from all of the towns along the route here, and from Brattleboro up to Saxon River, with the idea of what things are really, really important to people who live along here and how can we improve it in certain ways. And there were probably 120 people there at that first meeting. Then we were broken off into different groups that looked at things that were most important. So we looked at communication, cell service, internet, then transportation was another one. Obviously, you can get, if you can get to Brattleboro and you can get on a bus, you can get to Boston, but you can't get out the same day. You have to stay in Springfield. So those are the kinds of issues. Talking about having a parking lot, so the parking lot in county, those kind of things. So that's the transportation. And then there's a branding committee that is working on what is this area about. How do people get attracted to it? What can we do to stimulate interest, which maybe bring more people, more kids, and lower our education taxes, if you could think. And that's the branding committee in May. We're going to work with the Chambers of Commerce directors from 3 towns around here and have what's called FAM Tour, Familiarization Tour. Now, they're not doing all that. There are a lot of organizations all pulling together to do that, but they're the ones kind of underneath, starting the pot, so to speak.
Yes, I'm going to have time. If you want to call questions, second. I need a second. Gary seconded. 2/3 majority to end debate. So all those in favor of ending debate now, please indicate so by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed say no. We're now going to vote on Article 9. So a yes vote is in favor of funding, a no vote is against funding. Shall the voters of the town of Newfane vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $5,100 for Southern Vermont Economic Development Strategies, CVEDS? All those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. No. The noes appear to have it. The noes have it, and the motion fails. And if there is no objection, our State Senator Peter Galbraith has walked in and would like to talk to us. So, hearing no objection, Peter, please.
Well, good morning all, and I will just talk briefly, and then if you want, it's up to you, questions. I don't want to take up, we've got a lot of work to do. I will say very briefly that the legislature is dealing with our usual problem of significant demands and finite resources. I'm expecting that we will in fact get through this session because the economy's improved at least slightly without significant programmatic cuts, without raising what the governor defines as broad-based taxes, which is to say sales, income, and rooms and meals. Nonetheless, I think we are confronting the major problem of ever-escalating property taxes. My view is that we cannot continue to fund education so heavily on property tax. It's true that many the homeowners are on income sensitivity, but we have businesses and also second homes, and in the end we risk getting to a point where we begin to kill the goose that's laying our golden egg. So that's an issue we're addressing. I sit on the Finance Committee, the only member of the Wyndham County delegation that's on the Revenue Raising Committee. And we're looking, this year I have a bill, there's 3 of the 7 members, hopefully we get the 4th, that would in fact close some loopholes that have very limited policy purposes and put enough money that would hold the line on property taxes over the next year. Other issues that we're dealing with is we're looking to the financing of Vermont's universal publicly financed healthcare system. I've had a bill that has at least done what I intended to do, which is to begin the conversation on it. We're considering this in the Finance Committee. We're going to make some decisions this year. One of them is going to be how we handle people who are on Medicare. The problem there is that people who are on retirees on Medicare have already paid for their health care. That's what that payroll tax is. So you don't want to have them then pay on their pensions or retirement income for something that they already paid for. And I think the solution that we're going to come with on finance that I've been promoting is that we would say if you're on Medicare, you would not be part of the single payer system unless you chose to be. And then if you chose to be, just like with Medicare Parts B, C, and D, you would pay in according to a premium. And finally, another issue we're addressing, and this is topical, the President talked about it in his State of the Union speech. The governor has made a statement, it's raising the minimum wage. This is not only giving Americans who work hard a pay raise, but it's actually something that saves the government money. Because right now, low-wage workers are subsidized by taxpayers. The Earned Income Tax Credit, which we do on the state and federal level, food stamps, LIHEAP, and so a higher minimum wage is not only fair, but it's actually a fiscally conservative way to cut government spending. So those are one other issue I wanted to mention. There was discussion about weakening the bottle bill in the Natural Resources Committee to come on. I strongly oppose that. I would like to see it extended to the containers that do not currently have a deposit, because I think all of us who walk in the woods, can't help but notice, 40 years ago when it was put into effect, people didn't buy water in bottles. Now they do.
And because there's no deposit on that, we see that much more of that in the litter stream. And so I think as a litter control measure as well as encouraging recycling, that expanding the bottle bill is the direction we should go. Let me stop there, and depending, Madam Moderator, what your pleasure is.
You're doing great. You've got 5.5 minutes to answer questions. Do you want to talk more?
How are we doing with the cell phone expansion?
Well, okay, so we had, the commitment was to get broadband to all of Vermont by the end of 2013. I can tell you that that commitment has not been met. I know because I don't have broadband. In the committee, they came up and they said, oh, well, there are only 5 E911 addresses in Townsend that don't have it. I said, well, I have 3 different buildings. I said, I know 3 of them, and that number's not right. And so I don't know. Does everybody in Newfane have broadband? No. Well, okay. This is a huge problem. This was a commitment. We've had a couple $100 million in federal funding, and that is something it is critical because we're going to operate in the 21st century. You need 21st century technology. And the truth is there are a lot of jobs that can be done with the right technology from people's homes. And we want to talk about ways in which we can make our communities vibrant, ways in which we can get more young people to participate, ways in which we can get high-paid jobs. Well, that is with broadband. Now, the issue of cell phone coverage is a separate one. That was not, we didn't have the funding to extend it. It is being gradually extended again. Could be more rapid. Of course, it's also been controversial in several communities as to where these towers might go.
Kim Friedman, South Newfane, thank you for taking often unpopular and courageous stands on multiple issues in the Senate. Could you talk a little bit about some of the education funding and governance proposals that are on the table and your sense of the pulse of the legislature in terms of those proposals?
Sure. Well, thank you for your comments. I can tell you one of those stances, if I can digress, campaign finance reform, getting corporate contributions out of Vermont politicians. You know, corporate contributions have been banned under federal law since 1907. We still allow it. I was discussing expanding the bottle bill. Well, guess what? We can't get it expanded. Who are the largest contributors to Vermont candidates? Anheuser-Busch, wholesale beverage industry, the grocers. There are some senators who get 100% of their contributions from corporations, but the attitude is, we're all against corporate funding, but don't take away my corporate contributions. So yes, it's unpopular with my colleagues, but I haven't found that there's been great support, that my constituents have been saying, can we avoid contributing to your campaign so we can have some companies do it instead? So excuse the digression. As to education funding, there are a series of proposals in the House. I suppose Representative Merrick's already. You can ask him about what they're talking about. In terms of what we're looking at in the Senate, would be basically to close certain loopholes in the income tax and use the money, put it in the education fund, and put it into the fund as an incentive to towns that hold the line on spending. I think it would go to towns that hold the line to inflation plus 1%. That's a 3 or 4% increase, depending on what the rate of inflation is. And if every town did it in the state, there would be no increase in the property tax in the next round. What's going to happen next year is already set by the previous year. Tried it last year as well. I had 3 of the 7 members of the Finance Committee. Couldn't get the 4th. But we keep at it. In the end, I think the larger question is, that we can't keep funding education this way. Maybe if I could also digress to a larger point, having come from another town where I got a lot of heat on taxes and how high the taxes are in the state of Vermont, and how bad it is for business. The reality is, yes, we could cut our taxes, but what is important, what makes Vermont attractive is the quality of life we have. And quality services cost money. It's not, yes, we have high taxes. We don't have the highest taxes in New England. We don't have the highest in the country, but we have high taxes. We also have the best schools, the healthiest population, and a lot of other things that make people want to live here. And that's why a certain kind of business wants to come to Vermont.
Thank you, Bill Winter. Could you comment on where things stand with the handheld cell phone ban?
So that is, it's passed the House. It's in the Senate Transportation Committee, and it will come to the floor. I must say I have some mixed feelings about it. I sure as heck like to have cell phone coverage before I ban it.
First, I support you and follow the second, Vermont used to have a bonding capacity where the state would guarantee town bonds if they wanted to put in a water system or a sewer system. And, the three villages here suffer badly from, the well to septic system distances you need, the pollution is not. And I just would ask you to maybe look into that, and I think it'd be very good for the villages to be able to do that, to provide for the ways to expand a little easier the wilderness and village road. And finally, your dad here today gave a wonderful speech in Newfane, which he said his dream was for Newfane that someday all the wires would go in the ground.
So we've always been residents of Townsend, but our mailing address was Newfane, so he always thought of Newfane as his town. I'm from a neighboring town, but were I a member of this town meeting, I would be certainly expressing my father's views, but it's up to you. Thank you all very much. I would love to stay and talk. I'm proud to represent you, and I would love to stay and talk, but today is a bit like speed dating in government. So I've got 20 towns to go to, and thanks for taking some time out from your business to hear from me.
Thank you. That brings us to Article 10. You'll find the information for this on pages 17, 18, and 19 in your town reports. Shall the voters of the town of Newfane vote to authorize capital fund expenditures in the amount of $412,797 as proposed in the capital needs plan for the fiscal year 2015. Is there a motion? It has to be, this has to be moved before it can be amended. Kim Friedman has moved it, Katie Robinson has seconded it. The Article 10, as printed in your town report, is now on the floor. Is there any discussion? Yes. Todd, would you take the microphone, please?
If you have the correction sheet for this town report, you'll see there that the correct figure that should be there is $286,891. That's what I would like to amend it.
Is there a second? The amendment of what Todd said is that the figure is incorrect and should read $286,891, and he is offering an amendment to that effect. It needs to be seconded. Ken McFadden has seconded it. Sorry, I can't see. All right. So we now have an amendment on the floor. Article 10 now reads, shall the voters of the town of Newfane vote to authorize capital fund expenditures in the amount of $286,891 as proposed by the capital needs plan for fiscal year 2015. Is there any discussion? Excuse me, you need to be recognized, Myra. Recognize Greg.
I'm sure someone from the board's going to address this, hopefully. I guess while you're doing these next 4 articles, what's a little confusing to me is every one of them ends in capital needs. I don't know why we have 4 articles on capital needs. So please address each one. And maybe answer my question on that one.
Is there someone from the board who wants to explain this? He doesn't understand the question. The question is, why do Articles 10, 11, 12, and 13 all deal with capital needs? You want to not mumble that?
They are capital needs articles that all refer to particular pieces of the capital needs budget.
Explain what parcels are.
Oh, let's do one of the.
Understanding. Last year, this article read 412,797. This year it's 286,891.
Right.
I'm just asking you, why the discrepancy in what it's going for?
Okay.
That holds true with each one of the
All right, well, let's take one at a time. On this one, the simple error that was made in the reason for the amendment is that in writing up the article, the numbers pulled from the prior year rather than this year. So what we're talking about here is the first article that we're now addressing is the total expenses in debt service. And this is down from last year at $412,000 to this year at $286,891. So that is the total amount that that the select board in creating the budget has come up with as the requirement for the town's capital expenditures, which are all the items listed above that line: highway equipment, bridges, highway improvements, town building, and our debt service. And I'll be happy to address them at this point.
Is that on page 17?
Yes, everything is on page 17 of the town report.
Oh, on page 19, in the middle of page 19, you have the 286,891. Total acquisitions and debt service under fiscal year. It says Article 10 at the top of the column.
Yeah, you've got a further break. The pages 18 and 19 are simply a little bit further broken down on the house.
You have to have the separate articles. One, Article 10 deals with expenditures, so you have to vote on what you're going to spend. The next article is how much you're going to raise. So you have to tell them how much you're going to borrow. So you have to have them separate. You can't have them all in one. And the explanation is on, and I think Article 13, it's going to be solely dedicated, so there's separate, I think the historical can explain that. But all of this information is page 17 is the summary, and page 18 and 19 is the details. But you can't have it all in one article. You have to spend, you have to decide what you're going to raise, and what you're going to borrow.
Thank you. Yes.
I understand where Doris is coming from. It's difficult to vote on what we want to spend if we're really not sure where the funds are going to come from. For instance, what we've got in here, between the difference to reserves and taxes to be raised.
I need you to speak louder.
Okay. What we have here, my point
Yeah,
is,
if you could please come into the mic area. I can't hear you.
Thanks, Mike. My point is that it's difficult to vote logically on how much we want to spend if we don't have a clear sense of where the resources are coming from. For example, when we talk about where the money's coming from, if we look at the additions to reserves that's being requested, that's $100,000. We're also being asked to raise taxes by an additional $184,891. So we're talking about close to $300,000 that we want to raise in taxes this year, whether we call it taxes or additions to the reserve. And I think that as a group we need to understand why we need to make that kind of an investment this year, and it ties the expenses and the sources of the resources together very, very closely. So I understand where ours is coming from, but I also find that it's difficult to make a decision on what to spend if we're not clear on where the money's going to come from.
Okay. Just to one thing, Gary, I think our being agreed, it didn't last long. It's not 100,000 plus 184,000. The 100,000 is what we are proposing being added to reserves. That leads to the requirement to reach that amount is the income side is the 184,000 in taxes. So it's not one plus the other. It is that it was the board's judgment that it was necessary to add to our capital reserve. So because, as I think many in the town are aware, we did run into cash flow problems this year. And we definitely do not want to continue to run into cash flow problems. And so we felt that a cushion was desirable. And that was the reason for adding $100,000 to the reserves. We're still in a very high flux situation in terms of reimbursement from the federal government from the flood. So there's still a number of situations where you run into the taxes on one thing goes up and your inflow, if it doesn't come in as rapidly, you can run into some serious cash flow issues. So what we're asking taxes to be raised, or the actual additional cost to the taxpayer is shown on the line, taxes to be raised of $184,000.
And I am going to ask that we confine our conversation to Article 10 at this time, and that we talk about Article 13 when we get there. We have to earn it.
Annie Landberger, Williamsville. I'm just curious as to where we stand on the Arch Bridge. Doesn't look like 40,000.
And that is not germane to this article.
Well, it's in that part of the budget.
Is it? I'm sorry. Can you give me the number page? Does this include the Arch Bridge? This 286? Todd?
Yeah, I believe it is part of that.
Okay, I'm sorry. Excuse me. I'm sorry.
I didn't know if like 40 grand is going to be enough to cover it. I wonder what the state's doing.
No, we didn't figure it was going to cover it. We just figured it's gone to the design phase now. You can see where they've been surveying that bridge. And as soon as they start the design phase, we start getting bills for the bridge. Like the bridge by the South Newfane store for like 15 years, we kept getting bills every month for that bridge, for design phase and for whatever they were doing in computer. So we put the 40,000 in there to cover that, so we don't go in the negative with that. One of the things that the people really could do to help us would be to get a hold of your representatives and push them upon that bridge. That bridge is in pretty bad shape. It's to the point where the state is actually considering possibly shutting it down, which is, they say it's not an inconvenience, but we say it is. So, it's pretty bad. So, yeah, that is in there, and that's why we put that in there.
Other discussion? Yes?
Point of order, we have an amendment to put that amount down to $282,000. So,
That's the amendment. If there's no further discussion, but thank you for the point of order. We are discussing the amendment to change the Article 10. I think people want to understand what Article 10 is for. Is there further discussion about the amendment? are you ready to vote on the amendment? And that vote, a yes vote, means changing Article 10 to read 286,891. Everybody understands that? And we can continue this discussion once we know the fate of the amendment. All right? So a yes vote is in favor of this amendment and of lowering the number in the article. Shall the voters of the town of Newfane vote to authorize capital fund expenditures in the amount of $286,891 as proposed in the capital needs plan for fiscal year 2015? All those in favor of this amendment, please indicate so by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. The ayes have it, and the amendment passes. We can now talk about Article 10 as amended. Is there further discussion? Yes, Lynn.
I just have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Since Articles 10, 11, 12, and 13 are all delineated within the capital expense budget,
Mm-hmm.
should we vote for those all in one piece?
No, they are, we have to vote article by article. Yes. We can divide, you can divide an article. You can divide it up. It lends itself to that. But you can't combine them. Yes, Chris.
Be germane to this discussion, follow up on the Kyle just suggested about the argument.
Yes.
So another point that communicating to elected officials with B-Trans officials is a very good idea. And one of the things I was stressed is that after Irene, because of the damage to the Route 30 bridge, that was the critical bypass around that bridge. There's no reason to think that that same level of storm, which could happen again, look at the period between 27 and 37, storms we had. That undermining of the abutment of Route 30 could happen again, and that would again wind up being a detour. So, as opposed to just saying it's an important bridge to the town, we need it, you can also stress that it's also important infrastructure for this area of the state as a whole. As it is, I'm not sure if the folk in Montpelier knew or cognizant of how important that was. So, just wanted to make that point.
Thank you. Joanna.
I'm just curious if you could tell us a little bit about what the 40,000 for the town is.
Yeah, I think that it's broken down. We discussed this. We got recommendation from the town office committee. I'm sorry, Madam Moderator.
Yes, go ahead.
We did get a recommendation from the town office committee that's been working on, did a tremendous amount of work. And sorry, I'll sandwich it in here. I want to thank them for the work that they did this year. It's excellent. They really did make sure that we're on solid footing in more areas than rather literally. But their recommendation was a request, I believe it's for $30,000. And we also know that there's some very significant electrical work that needs to be done at the Williamsville Hall that could not be accomplished in our current year's budget, and so we allocated $10,000 for that. I believe that's broken out on the detail pages 18 and 19.
Is there further discussion? Are you ready for the vote on Article 10? Okay, Article 10, we're voting, a yes vote is for the amended article, a no vote is against it. Shall the voters of the town of Newfane vote to authorize the capital fund expenditures in the amount of $286,891 as proposed in the capital needs plan for fiscal year 2015? All those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. The ayes appear to have it, and the motion passes. Article 11. Shall the voters of the town of Newfane vote to raise the amount of $84,891 for fiscal year 2015 capital needs? Is there a motion? Myra moved it, seconded by Chris Campany. Article 11 as read is now on the floor. Is there any discussion? Kim Friedman.
I'm wondering, but I may be mistaken, if there's a typographical error here,
Yes.
and whether it should be 184 then it would be very helpful if I could, if you could explain this 184,891 figure on page 17.
If there is no objection, Shannon Meckel is willing to educate us. Hearing none, Shannon, you have the floor.
So the 184, So the 184 is the total with the 100,000 to be raised. They need to be separated out because it has to be specific that 100,000 has to be dedicated to future capital needs. So I needed to split them out for the upcoming current year's 84,891, and then the future capital needs is the 100,000 for a total of 184. They're two separate articles.
So Kim, you still have a question?
So I understand what you're saying, but, and again, I might be mistaken, but then it seems to me that we're counting the 80 twice. The taxes to be raised, it seems then it should be the 100,000 instead of 184,891.
The 100,000 is Article 13, and the 84,000 is Article 11.
And you see the sum to the report is 100.
On what page is that?
That's 17.
On page 17, they're commingled promiscuously, but on the warning, they are separated out with decorum. I want to make sure that, does anybody else have this question? Does everybody understand? While Kim is coming up to speed here, I just want to let you know that the information that our select board has to absorb and manipulate and understand and then distill and bring to us is really impressive. And we really can't thank them enough because they're willing to do this and to work the numbers. So thank you again. Further discussion? Greg.
Again, I'd like to ask you, if you could explain, for the sake of everybody, I think I know what the 84,891 are specific to.
Is there someone on the select board who'd like to answer that?
Yeah, let me just make sure I'm on the right page.
You can tell us what page it is?
I'm looking at 17. That's the critical page. Basically, it's if you take all of the expenditures that we have, all right, everything we're laying out, and if you look on page 17, fiscal year 2015 that we're talking about here, right? And you lay out all those expenditures, and they add up to the money we just voted, the 286,891, right? I'm not including yet the additions to reserves for the future. Those are needed, that 286,691 is needed for the things we've already allocated for this coming year. That, if you just were to do the math and do the subtraction, you would come up with when you do all what the money that's coming in, and you subtract out that from 286,000, the 120,000 that we can use from past reserves that we built up, the 80,000 that we can use from borrowing because we're buying a truck as part of the highway equipment, we can borrow that funds. The 2,000 that we'll get for capital that we leave in the bank. You subtract that out, it comes out to 84,000. All right, that's the math on that. Okay. Now, just to be clear, because I can see people it's easy to get confused on this. In addition to that, which is a future article, it's not the one we're discussing now. We're now then saying we should add 100,000 to reserves. So that's why you see at the bottom of the page 184,000. But right now we're just discussing the 84,000 that is exclusive, not including the 100,000 for future reserves. It's only the next year's capital spending that the $84,000 goes to. And it's all the items at the top that lead to the figure of $286,000 that we just voted.
Does that answer your question? All right. Is there any other discussion? Any other questions? Ready to vote? Voting on Article 11. Shall the voters of the town of Newfane vote to raise the amount of $84,891 for fiscal year 2015 capital needs? All those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it, and Article 11 passes. Article 12. Shall the voters of the town of Newfane authorize the select board to borrow up to $80,000 for fiscal year 2015 capital needs? Is there a motion? Greg, seconded by Myra. Article 12 as read is now on the floor. Is there any discussion? Hearing none? Oh, there is discussion.
Again, you guys are pleased. Why you're asking for $80,000?
For a truck. Actually, directly that's related.
In your capital, you'll see every truck is timed out by how many years we keep it. This year it's the 2007, which is a little bit over the 5 years. One ton that we have, that's the truck that does all the roads from basically the covered bridge up to the South Newfane store. All the little side roads that are too steep and too narrow for the big trucks to do. So he does it with that little truck. And then in the summertime, he takes that little truck and he does all the raking with it. So the truck's getting pretty tired, especially after this year. But that's what it's for, is to replace the one-ton truck.
Does that answer your question? Anyone else have any questions, discussion? We're ready to vote on Article 12. Shall the voters of the town of Newfane authorize the select board to borrow up to $80,000 for fiscal year 2015 capital needs? All those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it, and the article passes. Article 13. Shall the voters of the town of Newfane vote to raise the amount of $100,000 to be added to the Capital Reserve Fund to be solely dedicated for future capital needs? Is there a motion? Doris, and seconded by Marie. And is the Article 13 as read is now on the floor. Is there any discussion? Gary?
Just taking a page of first look, how did we arrive at 100,000?
You need to speak louder.
How did we arrive at 100,000 as compared to 75 or 125?
Is there someone on the select board who can answer that?
I love how they hand it to me. I'm tempted to say it's completely arbitrary, but the fact is, we discussed this extensively. You know, it is a difficult number to come by. It is looking at the future. What we have seen is that in past years, and this is something that I'm afraid passed by a lot of people's notice, including my own. You might notice at the bottom of page 17, when we're talking about here the balance of capital reserve being $164,000, of which we're using for this year's budget 120 of it. In previous years, that number has been a minus number. Now, I don't know if anybody has ever had a bank at a significant minus number. What normally happens when you have a bank account that has a minus number is usually not pleasant. And we would go ahead and have a minus number there and still have a positive number in capital reserves to be used. That's a piece of finance cleverness that we fooled ourselves and we thought we had money we didn't have. And we then realized this was a very poor practice. We have, because we have gradually been getting reimbursed for flood damage, been able to build back our reserves and in a much better position now than we were. But we don't want to be in that position again. So we looked at it, we considered numbers of 0 to add to capital reserves, which would leave us with $44,000 for the future. We considered numbers of $150,000 or $200,000. I think what we came to was the realization that a real number that could give the treasurer, whoever that would be for next year, a little bit of breathing room would be extremely desirable, because cash flow, as again I think many people are very aware of, can be a very tricky problem. Taxes do not come in all at once at the beginning of the year, and expenses come in when they come in, and you have to pay them in a timely manner. So we, I would say, compromised and felt that putting $100,000 into our capital reserve fund solely for capital purposes would give the new select board coming in the leeway to do some serious thinking about what were the most urgent needs of the town and where our capital should be invested. Yeah, I think
one of my biggest concerns is the Arch Bridge, which I've been pushing for forever. But this $100,000, if that bridge was to go next year, would cut way down our part of what we have to come up with for money. So it would put money aside, or we didn't have much money aside for the South Newfane Store Bridge, had to bond quite a bit of money for it. This would give us a little bit of cushion, so taxpayers don't get up all the ones like that again.
And Gloria, do you want to speak?
No, I just need.
Oh, yes, okay. Chris?
I just want to say, I think it's a very good practice, and one of the things that people may or may not know is if a disaster occurs, and maybe it's not like an Irene scale event, maybe it's a typical June thunderstorm takes out some roads, and you wind up qualifying for disaster assistance. Those are all reimbursement programs. They don't give you the money and then you do the work. The town has to do the work, has to pay the contractors, and then they get reimbursed. And cash flow, following Irene, is a huge issue for a number of towns. And this is, I would say, this is a good best practice that almost towns.
Just like to have it noted and commend the board. Last year, this article was $150,000. So they did knock it down 100. I think they've done a good job.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we're ready to vote on Article 13 as printed. Shall the voters of the town of Newfane vote to raise the amount of $100,000 to be added to the capital reserve fund to be solely dedicated for future capital needs? All those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it, and the motion passes. Were you wondering why I hesitate after it seems obvious what's happened? No, you're not interested. I won't tell you. We'll go on to Article 14. Shall the voters of the town of Newfane authorize town and highway operational expenditures in the amount of $1,241,536,000? Is there a motion? Pete Malone, Chris Campany, and Article 14, as read, is now on the floor. John Mack.
I'd like to amend the article to add the $1,000 that we added to Grace Cottage Hospital. So it should read, the amendment would suggest that the same exact wording, except the amount would be $1,242,536.
Is there a second? Seconded by Lynn Morris. We have an amendment on the floor that Article 14 should read, the amount should read $1,242,536. Is there any discussion? Do you want to rescind that amendment? It wasn't in the budget. Yeah, it was not in the budget. So if you want to do that, $300, not in the budget. We take all that back. The amendment is for $1,242,536. Is there any discussion on the town budget? I don't know who's talking. Please raise your hands to be recognized. Yes. Point of order takes precedence.
I think the idea is it's discussion on the amendment.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Shall we vote on the amendment? Is there any objection to voting on the amendment? Hearing none, that's what we're going to do. A yes vote means changing that number to $1,242,536. So, all those in favor of amending that number to $1,242,536, please indicate so by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. The amendment passes, and now we will discuss, or we can discuss, the town budget as amended. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, is that a hand up? Hearing none, we're ready to vote. Yes?
Can you tell us what's involved in the town garage contracting services and the town garage meeting?
I can't, but I can ask somebody who does know.
That's where we get a lot of our oils for the trucks and stuff. Instead of putting it down under oil and that stuff, we put it under contract services. Sometimes it's repairs to the doors or stuff like that.
Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Is there any further discussion on Article 14 as amended? Hearing none, we'll vote on Article 14. Shall the voters of the town of Newfane authorize town and highway operational expenditures in the amount of $1,242,536,000? All of those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it, and Article 14 passes. Article 15. Shall the voters hold town meeting in 2015 and thereafter at Newbrook Elementary School? Is there a motion? Katie had her hand up first. Neil Palsu seconded. Article 15, as read, is now on the floor. Is there any discussion? Dan.
Dan Brooks. I just would like to encourage people to maintain what we have going now. We've had this discussion before, and there's something about coming into this hall on town meeting day. It carries on a tradition that we're very proud of, and it's not just tradition for tradition's sake. It's mainly, it's an atmosphere you have in here. You have natural light coming in. You have people before us have been here. It makes me proud to be part of town meeting, which I would be anyway. But if it was at the Newbrook School, I'd be about 2% proud, and 10 out of 10 proud. And the other thing, too, is that the Union Hall in particular, I mean, they're struggling to maintain this building as it is. And so, one, I think we should use it. Two, every other year, here, I don't see any harm in supporting the maintenance of this building for a few $100 if we needed to rent this building. But bottom line is, it's atmosphere, it's the feel of town meeting, and I would be a crying shame to lose that feeling.
We had town meeting in the school a couple years ago, and it was a nightmare. You know, the idea of going into a concrete block, square, no windows, fluorescent lights, where there's no space, so not only can you not hear, but you can't see at the same time. To give that up and exchange, you know, to take that in exchange for having two beautiful halls, which are assets to our community, which shine during town meeting. You know, if we didn't have town meeting in Williamsville, a lot of people wouldn't realize the hall has been completely renovated and is open for business again. So these are our town treasures, maybe too great a word, but these are our town assets. And for us to turn our back on them, I would actually like to know the rationale for this, because when we had the meeting at the school, at the end of the meeting, everyone voted non-binding, saying, never again. So this is coming up like a fungus. What is this about?
Is there anyone who can speak in favor of moving this to the school?
Yeah, I'm Bob Litchfield, and I'm one of the village trustees. I'm in charge of this building. I don't mind opening it up, but we close it in the fall, right after Heritage Festival, because it costs so much to keep the building. I came over here Sunday during the heat up, and everybody seems to be comfortable today. I just want to let you know, we do not get anything for opening this up. They do pay the bills, and it costs around $1,000 to have the meeting here. So it's up to you.
I just want to say one thing. I know I'd like to see it here myself. Really, anywhere, as long as I'd like to see it in the same place every year. There's been a lot of confusion just in this year, especially with it being either Williamsville or a fire station, and it's cost us money to have to, you know, I don't know if it was put on the radio or not, or it's just, you know, stuff printed up about, you know, golf balls, boots, and it was, you know, people thought it was in Williamsville, and it's not, it's here this year, or back and forth, back and forth. You know, it's, so I just want to throw that in there. Just like to keep it in one spot. That's nice.
Gary?
Presumably, there was a reason for this being put on the warning. Can someone on the select board explain what that reason was and tell us what the other side of the issue is?
We had that discussion during budget time, and to open these halls up in the winter for one day and then shut them back down again, like Bobby just said, it's $1,000 just for this building alone. It took the road crew 4 hours with 2 pieces of machinery to open up the sides of the roads. It took Mark Gray like 2 days to shovel it and get the ice off it. So when the board was considering budget stuff, we said the school's already plowed, it's already heated, there's a good parking lot down there. A lot of the elderly people, from what we've been hearing, don't like coming to these halls because they're afraid they're going to slip and fall. There's no place to park, especially here, not that they've done the sidewalks. So the select board said, well, we put it up for an article, so that's what we did.
With all due respect for fiscal considerations, I'd be willing to put in a donation in a hat every year so that we could keep it like this. I'm not a native. I've only been here 18 years. But when I first came here, I was intrigued by why one year it was in Newfane, one in Williamsville. My mother and I were asked to do a play to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the Moore Free Library. And in the process of doing that, I discovered the rich history as to why it is shared back and forth. I won't go into it now, but there's a reason for it. There's a reason for everything. And I don't want to sound like an old fart, but honestly, so much of tradition these days is falling by the wayside. Could we just hold on to this? I'll happily put money in the hat.
remember when this came up 3 years ago, or 3 years ago, we voted to continue the alternation. I really think it's an excellent tradition. I think it's worth the $1,000 to open it up. I understand that the Union Hall doesn't gain money from it, but it is a wonderful space, and the Williamsville Hall is also a wonderful space. I do think it matters.
I just need to speak to one issue as a presiding officer at elections. In 2016, which would be when it's here, we will again have a primary presidential election at the same time, at the same place as our town meeting. There is a requirement, a federal mandate, that we have a dedicated telephone line in the building, so that those who possibly need to use the phone, though nobody has yet, but Newfane does not, and I need to underline, does not ever want to be the first one that gets a federal suit against us because we haven't provided that phone. So it would be here, and there is no telephone line that we can use. So I did work at the last primary election, and for yet another, I'm going to say $150 to $200, we were able to get a special line. We had to pay a month's rent on that. There was a complication with the fact that the Newburgh Fire Department's telephone number was listed as the town number. We got that taken care of, but that is something that has to be done. So just on another awareness that it would be at least another couple $100 that the town would need to absorb. So.
Thank you. Chris.
A question and a comment. So just clarify on this. Can that, Gloria, can that be a cell phone? Or does it have to be a landline?
It has to be a landline. And
Well, because you actually, because these things have got on a telephone call. If you have T-Mobile or you have cellular, you probably actually have cell service. There's a proposed AT&T tower for Brown Road. So
it's a special telephone for the visually impaired.
Okay. So anyway, I hate to see the vote turn on that. The other thing, I guess the comment I make is buildings are like cars. You don't use them, they die. You need to use them. But perhaps one of the solutions could be, I would also be happy to make a contribution. I live in the village. I like, because I guess I have a vested interest in seeing this building taking shape, but also, what if we made it more than opening up just for town meeting? So it's more than just a meeting and more than just a polling location. We have some other celebration or something else to make it worthwhile to open the halls up in the winter time. And that's just my idea.
Is there any other discussion? Yes, Steve.
Steve Levine, Williamsville, which is part of the county, I would like to point that out. And I am on the Williamsville Hall Committee. And I agree with what was so eloquently stated, that, yeah, these buildings are part of our heritage, part of our tradition. The Williamsville Hall is used 5 months a year. We're working towards being able to use it 12 months a year, or maybe, 9 months. Maybe we have to compromise and get that time. So I think it's very important to have town meetings here in this hall and in Williamsville, because of the way this town is geographically, it's nice to spread the pleasure around. So I think it's very important to keep using the hall, not the school. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion? We're ready to vote? Do you want to give something to say? Well, if you do that, we have to vote on calling the question. So if you rescind it, we can just vote. All right, so we are voting on Article 15. Shall the voters hold town meeting in 2015 and thereafter at Newbrook Elementary School? All those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed by saying no? No. The noes appear to have it. The noes have it, and Article 15 fails. Article 16, to transact any other business that may legally come before the town. Joe Mendel. Why don't you speak first, and then we'll do that. Okay.
I'm Joe Mandel with Williamsville. Just want to say a quick note for the senior solutions that help keep people in their homes. Is that why I came here out of my house? Okay, it must be assuming. I'm here to talk about a wonderful new project that's going to be going on in Newfane's Williamsville Hall. Newfane's Williamsville Hall used to be around a little over 100 years ago, 1909. It was a grange, and they did some wonderful activities, including collaborating with this hall, putting some plays on here, putting some plays on Williamsville. I still have some of the tickets in my collectible collection, and it was a great thing that we want to keep on as a tradition. And this year, some of you might have been to this hall when you saw a play that was directed here by Robert Duchamp of Brookline. And we, the Newfane Williamsville Hall Committee, has asked Bob Duchamp to direct plays at the Williamsville Hall, perhaps to establish it as a playhouse that we can think about all through the year. And I'm just here to reiterate essentially what's on this poster, which you might have seen on the way in, and I won't say much more than that. It's just that the Grange was once a Grange and it became a hall, but it's a hall now, and it will make a wonderful playhouse, but it's a stage art just like here, and we need your help. It's going to be, I'll read the notes here. First of all, on my left here, a pile there's a crew application to be filled out to talk about various positions that we would like volunteers for. And Bob has written here, can you handle paintbrush, screw gun, a hammer, help with props, organize costumes, smile in the box office, help the director at rehearsals. We need people to cover all the various jobs that have to be filled and who want to have a great time. Fill out this form, it's over here, and drop it in at auditions and sign up and watch the process. By the way, auditions will be held in the Brattleboro Savings and Loan. They're kind enough to give us their rooms on Wednesday night, April 2nd at 6:30, Thursday night, April 3rd at 6:30. The name of the show that we're talking about is Plaza Suite by Neil Simon. And they expect to have the play up and running on June 20th, June 21st at 7:30, June 27th, and June 28th at 7:30. Tickets $9, seniors and students $7. And so we ask you to really think about this. You don't have to do it all today, but if you can, fill out that form, leave it here, and I'll collect them. And it's just a wonderful thing. I'm very excited about it. And just as we're also excited about the Leland and Gray plays that they put up at the high school. It's all wonderful, and this is just an added enhancement. Thank you. Thank you. quick note. This does not cost Newfane Town any money, not even a dime this time.
We have an announcement over here. You can just hold it.
I'm Veronica, and this is Hattie, and we're in 6th grade at Newbrook, and we would like to share an exciting initiative taking place at Newbrook Elementary. It's called the Farm to School program, and our goals include incorporating more fresh and local food into our meal program, installing a greenhouse, and purchasing and building a brick pizza and bread oven for school and community-wide events that will help fund our Farm to School program. Integrate farm food and nutrition education into the school curriculum and continue to develop strong community connections. We are thankful for the support from our principal, school board, and superintendent. As our program grows, we look to our community for continued support. Please feel free to contact us and find out how you can help. Our website is newbrookschool.org. And we also thank you for donating for our Farm to School program and to raise money for our Montreal trip for the 6th graders.
If you're tired of winter and you want to have some laughs, come on up Friday night at 7:30 or Saturday at 3 and 7:30 to our annual cavalcade of comedy, song, and dance up in the Dutton Gymnasium, a beautiful historic building. It's cheap. It's $5 for adults, $3 for students and seniors. It's about a 2-hour show, and it's a lot of laughs. You won't stop smiling. So I hope you'll come enjoy it. Thanks.
I just wanted to thank all the town officers and volunteers. I want to thank the select board for all the hard work. I noticed all day that John Hack is very smile on his face. Good, well, we had this is his last day. Oh, it did. I wanted to, for us, offer a big round of applause.
Served for 9 years, and she was very helpful and became a great friend. So I want to thank her for her 9 years of service.
Doris was thanking Barbara Brisson for 9 years of service as a lister. She's retired. I saw a hand in the back. Yes, sir.
Yeah, hi, my name is Tom Dolan, and like Ann Landenberger, I've only been here 60 years, so.
No.
How about now? Hi, my name is Tom Dolan, and I'm like Ann Landenberger. I've only been here 57 years, so I'm not an actual Vermonter, but I'm here to talk real briefly about the organization called Newfane and New, and there's evidently a lot of mystery about it, so I was asked to read a few words. I'm a member. We're about a year old. We're a committee. Just as the name implies, we are a Newfane village a committee of hardworking neighbors from Newfane, Williamsville, South Newfane. We are basically trying to find ways and means to renew our town's vitality. We volunteer our time and we meet to discuss ways to bring exuberance back to our community through action. We exchange any ideas of any sort to see if there's an opportunity that rings loud and clear which can benefit everyone. We talk with Windham County Regional Commission and Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation representatives on how we as a community can help ourselves align with the regional economic plan so Newfane doesn't stand aside while other West River Valley towns gain momentum toward economic revitalization. We are average, ordinary citizens in town who have the hope that it takes to seek ways to enhance daily living in each of our villages. We're eager to regain a foothold on ways to promote what we already love about Newfane and can be counted among all of you here who have a vested stake believing Newfane can continue to flourish and become even more vibrant. Our goals align with ways to sustain our town's uniqueness and integrity while helping it rise above the economic challenges of today as we brainstorm ways to reshape and re-energize what we already have as a community. We invite you to join us and help us and be an active part of what we're trying to do for the common good. Please come to our meetings and speak out about what ideas you have. You may have seen some of our planning efforts come into focus that benefited the whole town when we brought back the Lumen area on the commons and bought and planted a new conifer tree up front. You saw our efforts when we solicited citizens who generally donated money to allow us to pay for the electricity to light up the commons so every citizen and traveler passing by could enjoy the holiday spirit it illuminated. You may have noticed wreaths that we placed in Williamsville and South Newfane that were also lit for the holidays, which was another neighborly thing we did to hope to build and bring these three villages together so our town, per se, can regain a renewed sense of community. We're working to get Newfane Village Center designation paperwork to the state so there will be a grant money available to each of our village communities that can be used to enhance and improve buildings and landscapes that meet state requirements for funding. Those are just some of the initiatives we've undertaken in the last year to make a difference. We're trying to make a difference. It's only the last couple of months since we began meeting. So please help us, please volunteer. I have some papers with names you can get a hold of if you want to join us. We're like a couple times a month, we meet on Wednesday. We welcome your help, we need your help. Just like Danny said about the town hall, maybe this committee could somehow work out a way to have some place here as well as South Newfane. And you know, in the digital age, it seems like community is getting less and less. Everybody's in their own little world, and we're just trying to. When I was a kid, we used to play soccer every Sunday over by Girls' Store. You don't see people play soccer. We have no political agenda. A lot of us are communists. But for instance, one of the things we talked about in our meeting was when Tommy and Kendra sent out a Facebook to everybody, and everybody made snowmen on the common. That was the coolest thing to happen in Newfane all winter. And just like Dan Walt said, this town hall is an asset. We hope to be an asset to the town. Growing up here for 60 years, I'm really, really in love with my town, and I just want to do whatever I can do to make sure it stays with the Newfane Inn and the Four Columns Inn, and people going to town and having children playing in the common. And that's it. Thank you very much.
If there's no objection, I would actually like to say something which as a moderator I'm not usually allowed to do. So I'm listening for objections. Hearing none. I'd like to piggyback on to Tom's about living in the digital age. Last year at this time, I helped get a committee together to start the Newfane News, which was short-lived. We talked with the Commons, they took it over, and then dropped us. Partly for lack of advertising revenue that we were supposed to bring in. The unintended consequences, we have much better coverage in the Reformer, except for their erroneous location for town hall. But I have just become aware of something called the Front Porch, and I don't even know if it's thefrontporch.org or .com. But thefrontporch.org, it's a digital newspaper you can sign up for. All the infrastructure is done, and Tom, I would urge Newfane Anew to post what you just read very quickly on there so that those of us who are slower processors could read it. And we could use it. It's much better than Facebook. It's not social media. It is simply media, although it is crowdsourced media. That's my plug, and I'm done. And thank you very much for indulging me. And Joanna, if you wanted to speak.
Just a reminder about the talent show, and come and see me if you have something you want to do, and please come to it. March 29th.
Just two things. It's frontporchforum.com, and it's easily accessible. And all you have to do is put your name on and do zip code and your email, and you get a notice from that. So that is one thing that a new group did get implemented as we started. I want to just announce that we only, and I'm going to underline only, have about 350 more dogs that need to be tagged. And that means that we now have 59 that have been tagged. So there's a notice up here. There will be an animal clinic at the neighborhood fire department on Saturday if you need to have inoculations. If you don't need inoculations, you can just come up to the town clerk, who will have the ability to have you get your license there. Tags have been available, and please don't think that April Fool's Day is really the day you should come line up. That's the drop dead date. So you really need to get your dogs licensed. Thank you very much.
If there are no further announcements, there are further announcements?
No announcements, thank you. I don't think that my wife has returned from the dentist yet, but at this point, at the town meeting, she usually sends a hearty warm thank you to the highway town crew for the work that they do.
In a similar vein, I'd like to express appreciation for having an outside auditor's report available for town meeting. I think it's huge.
This is great. More thanks? Complaints? Motion for adjournment? Meyer, motion. Dora, second. A vote. All those in favor of adjourning? The ayes have it. Thank you very much.